What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Take Three podcast. My name is Brandon, here with Alex. As always, we're here on a Tuesday night, fresh off of Monday Night Football. Hell of a finish, I guess. I mean, we got guys going for 64-yard field goals when you got Hall of Fame quarterbacks wasting time on the clock. I don't know what the hell was going on. Nathaniel Hackett probably gets donkey of the week. What a bozo decision. He comes out today, says, yeah, we probably should have gone with it or gone for it. Yeah, I guess so. But week one as a whole, man, I mean, it was a wild week when you look at it. Colts come out, Matt Ryan era, they tie with the Texans. They were down at 20-6 at one point. That was hilarious to look at. Scam line of the week. There's a prop. Damian Pierce was like 11 and a half carries, and somehow Rex Burkhead out carries him. Vegas gets you at that. Later window, Green Bay, embarrassing. Aaron Rodgers already freaking out one game into the season. Typical stuff from Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? At least he got his money. Bucks embarrass the Cowboys. Dak gets hurt. The Bengals looked bad. Joe Burrow tossing picks, gift and sixes. The Minka, Ravens take care of business. I mean, I won't get into all of it. We'll talk about some of these matchups and games and what went on Sunday and Monday night. But I mean, what do you make coming off of a week one? It's we're already into the swing of things. Thursday night is what, 2 days away? Yeah. So we're almost at Chargers Chiefs Thursday night football.
Yeah, crazy week one. Happy it's behind me. Glad I didn't do any real bets. I knew it was going to be kind of some weird outcomes. Looking back on the spreads, I didn't do too great. Some of them were kind of obvious to me. I don't know. Well, in hindsight, were obvious. But yeah, interesting weekend. Another example of there was quite a few teams that didn't play any starters in the preseason. That's like a Sean McVay trend that's been followed. And we've seen some of those teams, some of those players not play well week one. I know preseason is not important, but some of these guys just need to get a little rhythm. Joe Burrow is an example. We'll talk about it, but he threw a lot of picks. He didn't play any preseason. It's just, I feel like it just takes a little time for some of these teams, especially if they don't play any preseason games. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, some people told me maybe the appendectomy was a little bit more serious. I never knew the appendix was located in the brain, though. Just read a defense, Joe. Like let's get it together. Obviously, I expect the Bengals to pick it up. They get to play an easy Cowboys game next week. They should get things back on track. But I mean, let's start with week one. Fresh off a Monday night football, it was weird seeing Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the broadcast. Can't lie. Obviously, they covered the late Fox window usually. Now they're on Monday Night Football. But what do you make of that game? I mean, what do you make of Nathaniel Hackett's debut? Obviously, the donkey of the day with the decision making at the end. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback. They don't go for it. They waste time, waste a solid minute, and then decide to kick a 64-yard field goal. I don't think McManus has hit anything over 62 in like his last 7 attempts I saw on Twitter. Like he's missed a bunch. Geno Smith plays a clean game though. I mean, he has 23 at 28. At one point he was like 12 at 12 or 13 to 13. He finished with a $195, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So he played clean. But on the other side, Russ, I mean, if you look at the stat book, 340 yards, a touchdown, no picks. But the offense looked out of sort. The defense was kind of getting shredded when you have Geno Smith coming out of the gates, throwing a pitch in a perfect game to start out. What do you say? What do you make of Monday Night Football? Are you kind of worried about the Broncos? Their offense didn't look great. Defense didn't look amazing. As you mentioned before we even went on this, it kind of looked like Seattle 2.0 in Denver for Russ at times last night.
Yeah, it was not the debut I expected for Russell Wilson in the Broncos. Just kind of trouble all over the place, right? Nathaniel Hackett, as a first-time head coach, had basically no confidence in his $250 million Hall of Famer franchise quarterback. I thought that's exactly what Russell was getting out of, right? Him and Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is kind of set in his ways as he got Geno Smith to, you make some throws, you play good defense, you run the ball. His philosophy led to another win last night, right? It was kind of an ugly one, but that's kind of what Russell was getting away from. And it kind of felt like Seattle 2.0 at times. Granted, new coach, new offense, new weapons, new everything. But man, did they look out of sort. Obviously, Seattle's a hard venue to play at Monday night. That crowd was roaring, rocking. They're ready for Russell, but you got to be disappointed if you're the Broncos, whether it's the clock management and that weird timeout situation at the end of the game, settling for that field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 5, which even though the offense was like out of sorts all game, they were still averaging like at least 6 yards a play. So that just made no sense. You pay Russell, he goes and demands this trade to go to a team where they want the ball in his hands 4th quarter. This was a prime example. Put the ball in his hands, let him make a play, and they opted for a 64-yard field goal on the road. It was just asinine. I don't know what they were thinking. And just the rhythm and timing of the Broncos offense felt off all night, even when they made some plays. I mean, the Jerry Jeudy touchdown was kind of an underthrow, and he got saved there as well. It just felt so out of sorts, out of rhythm. And what really concerned me was the defense let Geno cook to start the first half. I think you already said it. I think he started 13 for 13. That was pretty concerning because I thought Denver's defense and their secondary was going to be pretty good this year. I'm not out on Denver by any means. They have time to get it together because they just look so out of rhythm. But man, it was concerning. All the delay of games, the constant snaps, snapping the ball with 1 to 2 seconds left on the clock. And even with all that said, they still probably should have won the game. They fumbled twice within the 5-yard line. Credit Seattle's defense somewhat, but that's pretty unlikely to happen again. So I'm not completely out on Denver, but wow, was that a discouraging first game?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing for the Seahawks is you only need to beat them once, right? It's not a 7-game series, so the 2 fumbles happen, and then, yeah, that's what it is in football. But yeah, I mean, Denver, they didn't look good. They looked out of sorts. A lot of penalties, as you mentioned, delay of games. Really stupid roughing the passer on Bradley Chubb too. There's just no reason, right? There's some discipline things they have to get down. And yeah, as we talked about before this, for the Broncos, it's like they're in a war zone division, right? You're going to play the Chiefs twice. You're going to play the Chargers twice. You got to play the Raiders still. So the AFC is not easy. And this is a game where you let slip away. This is a cookie game, right? This is a game you were 6.5-point favorites to open the year. This should have been the Russ coming out party, dominate them. The Seahawks, what do we predict them? 2 wins, 3 wins? Like they are going to, I mean, they're still going to be bad. But yeah, this is a game the Broncos should have won. And now you look at their schedule and they're going to have to find a way to steal a game from a tougher team, right? Steal a Chiefs game or steal some other game to make up for a cookie loss in a tough AFC and a tough AFC West. So yeah, I'm interested to see where the Broncos go, right? I'll keep an eye on them next week and the next couple of weeks, because I mean, this is not a good start to the Hackett era when you already have some questionable things going on in your debut. I don't even know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of the wasting the 40 seconds or the 50 seconds and then calling the timeout. I mean, it was hilarious watching the Manning test though, where Peyton Manning's just freaking out, telling him to call the timeout. Shannon Sharp's freaking out too. It was baffling, to be honest. I got to see the second half, and yeah, I was baffled. I was keeping up with it on the phone though with the Geno Smith start, and it was yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, the Broncos are going to have to find a way to build off of this and get some more cohesiveness on offense. I'd say get the rhythm, get the delay of games out. I mean, it was crazy to me, right? Because Russ has played there for so long. How do you not prep? And he knows what that environment's going to be like. And they came out and they looked unprepared.
And it's just so hard to figure out where their thought processes were, because like they have these really good wide receivers and they didn't get targets for like the first quarter and a half against a poor Seattle secondary. Credit Michael Jackson, that Seattle corner. Troy Aikman kept saying his name because he kept making plays all night. So that's a 5th-round pick. I mean, maybe Seattle hit on some guys again, but that secondary, we don't expect much out of them. And all of a sudden it was a lot of tight end running backs, which we are going to see a lot of in this Denver offense. Don't get me wrong, but just so many puzzling coaching decisions. And it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. I thought they had big mismatches with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and they didn't really maximize the opportunities there. It was just very puzzling game for Denver.
For sure, yeah. The Broncos looked like, yeah, the Broncos, yeah, they broncoed, I guess. But let's move on. Let's move on to another game in the late Sunday. Let's go Chiefs Cardinals. What do you make, man? Patrick Mahomes. We talked about it. What are they going to look like without Tyreek? How's it going to look like without Tyreek? 30 of 39, 360 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. He didn't get sacked once. He was pretty clean, right? Travis Kelce did his thing. You were spot on, I believe, in the AFC West preview. You said Juju Smith-Schuster was going to be the number 1 target. He led the wide receivers in targets with 8. Obviously, Travis Kelce, he led the team with 9. But what do you make, man? The Chiefs were impressive. We kind of figured it that Mahomes and Andy Reid would get it together, and they would know what to do. Isaiah Pacheco leads the backs too and carries 12 carries to Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 7, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire did find 2 catches for 2 touchdowns. So they found a way to get him involved. But what do you make of the Chiefs? And yeah, I mean, overall, what do you think about the scam line, that whole debacle too? We talked about it kind of when we covered or talked about it on the preview. What do you make of the line Cardinals +6? We swore that it was going to be a ripoff, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a classic Vegas scam line, and we were right about that. Just one note on Arizona. Arizona looked way worse than expected. They looked like the team that got their ass kicked in that wild card game. They look like they're on the downslide instead of the upwards momentum that they should have with a young quarterback on a new contract. So definitely worried about Arizona. But let's talk about Kansas City and how good they were, right? I think it's clear. I still think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, best player in football. No disrespect to Josh Allen or any of the other elite guys. They are phenomenal as well. They deserve all the praise they get. But there's just something about Pat Mahomes, man. He organized a little training camp before training camp with all his new receivers. He took initiative there. Andy Reid loved it. You pair him with Andy, and it's just like you feel like Kansas City's just going to figure it out, right? They kind of got a mystique. Like even in the playoffs, you just feel like they're going to win. Yes, they lost the Super Bowl. Yeah, they lost to the Bengals last year, but it's just hard to pick against Kansas City. I thought they were going to be real good again this year, look real nice. They had a better week one than even I expected. Maybe Arizona is way worse than we thought, but Kansas City was humming. And like when Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball, I think he can make it work with many, many receivers. And as long as Travis Kelce's out there, that Kansas City offense is going to be lethal.
Yeah, the Chiefs are just too smart, right? As you mentioned, they prepare well. Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes, and you got those guys. They're going to find a way to get it done. And I do think it's a little bit of the Cardinals are just going to be worse, probably than we thought. Right, 8-9 team, 7-10 squad. I don't know. It's as we said, it's something with Kyler Murray. I'm not getting the vibes there. And then Greg Dortch is the leading receiver. Honest to God, never heard of the guy. I don't know what the hell's going on there. They couldn't really get anything in the run game, but they were just getting shredded on defense. I mean, Patrick Mahomes had his way, went out there and had fun. He did what Russell Wilson should have done to the Seahawks, right? He just kind of went out there, had his way, had fun. And the Chiefs are, they're right back. They're exactly who we thought they were. And that's what it is. Let's move on to another game in the late window. Green Bay, they looked awful. Aaron Rodgers was pissed. But Kirk Cousins, dude, Justin Jefferson looked like probably the best wide receiver in football, arguably. I mean, Cooper Kupp was still pretty damn good Thursday night, so it's right up there, probably a toss-up. But what do you make of the Packers? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is already pissed. He kind of knew what it was going to be. When Devontae Adams left, he couldn't convince him to stay. He was 22 of 34, $195, and one pick. That streak ended, so I know he's definitely pissed because he was holding on to that for his life, not throwing a pick against NFC North teams and since I think it was 2019 before that. But they just couldn't get anything going, right? They couldn't get anything with the receivers, and the Vikings look good, honestly. I think we both picked the Vikings to kind of we definitely picked them to win outright. We thought the +1 the 1.5 underdog at home was like good. They always give Aaron Rodgers trouble early in the season, but I'm impressed with the Vikings. I'll be honest. Kevin O'Connell had his team ready to go, ready to attack. Zadarius Smith looked great. Him shoving Aaron Rodgers to the ground too is hilarious. But yeah, what do you make of the Packers week one? Is it going to be a long year in Green Bay? I assume they figure it out, but I think it might be a little bit tougher than we kind of predicted when we covered the NFC North. And how high are you on Kirk Cousins and the Vikings?
Yeah, I want to start by just praising the Vikings. I love that they went and got Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coach. I think makes the biggest difference. They're utilizing Justin Jefferson the same way the Rams would utilize Cooper Kupp. Obviously, it's just one game, but get the ball to the guy who's the best player on the field. Justin Jefferson is just a phenomenal wide receiver. He showed it Sunday. So I'm very excited to see what the Vikings can do this season other than their next game against the Eagles. But other than that, I'm high on the Vikings. I picked them to be a wild card team. They might actually win this division, which brings me to Green Bay that I think I was a little too high on Green Bay. I'm not out on them by any means. I definitely think they'll be a playoff team and get it together. My question for you is like, do we think this is an outlier thing where Green Bay just doesn't show up? Since Matt LaFleur has been their head coach, there's been 6 or 7 games that they just don't show up for. It was this game, Saints week 1. There was a Chargers game 2 years ago. On the biggest stage, NFC Championship game against the Niners, they didn't show up at all. So like, we are definitely concerned for Green Bay in that receiving core for sure. They have issues to work out, but is it more of Green Bay is going to be worse than we thought and this is going to be a prolonged thing, or is it just another one of those Matt LaFleur performances where he doesn't have his team ready to play at all?
Nah, for me, I think I was a little too high on Green Bay. I think I gave Aaron Rodgers a little bit too much credit. I kind of figured they'd be able to maybe run the ball and do this, do that. The defense, they obviously, I said when we covered the game on the preview last week, I don't know if they have a guy to cover Justin Jefferson. And clearly they did not have a guy to cover Justin Jefferson, as Jair Alexander just couldn't do the task. The defense wasn't up to it. But yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, maybe we're just a little bit too high on Aaron Rodgers. We thought maybe he could be a leader for these young guys, but he's already getting pissed week one, yelling at dudes. And I don't know. He's just a weirdo, man. That's the only thing I can say. He's a weird guy. He's already paid. It's kind of like he could check out mid-season if he really wanted to and just roll. That's how odd he is as a person. And then, I mean, for me with the Vikings, I honestly think they could win this division if they keep it up. If Kevin O'Connell keeps his offense rolling, keeps getting Justin Jefferson the ball. He still found 20 carries for Dalvin Cook in that offense. I love that. And if their defense can continue to get after quarterbacks the way they did Aaron Rodgers and force teams' hands, I like where the Vikings are headed. And I am a little bit concerned for the Packers that we might have just kind of gave them that over the Aaron Rodgers effect, right? Say they have Aaron Rodgers, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. But at some point, when you're throwing to guys like Randall Cobb on a consistent basis in 2022, it's just not enough. So it's something to watch with the Packers for sure.
Well, what was curious to me as well is like, well, it's a product of Kevin O'Connell and that offense of moving Justin Jefferson around, but like they did not have Jair Alexander shadow him at all. He had his most success when he was not near Jair Alexander. So I wonder if they switch that up in the next matchup later in the year, or, you know, they're stubborn and just let Justin Jefferson do his thing on him again.
It's something to watch out for. But the Vikings could finally be making their run. Kirk Cousins maybe finally gets his coach that can kind of push him over that hump that we were talking about all preseason. Moving on early, actually, we'll stay Sunday Night Football. What do you make? The Bucs made the Cowboys look like a literal JV squad in Jerry World. I love to see it. The Bucs by no stretch they didn't look amazing, but I mean, they did what they did, right? Tom Brady finds ways to win. He finally got a touchdown to Mike Evans. The defense looked great, to be honest. They looked like the Super Bowl defense when they beat the Chiefs. They were flying around. Devin White was fast. Levante David, those guys looked amped. It's probably a product of Todd Bowles, obviously defensive head coach, Byron Leftwich and his offense. But I mean, what do you make of the Cowboys, dude? The Cowboys looked awful, even when Dak was out there. He looked like hot garbage. Obviously, the thumb injury. He's probably out there swearing 4 weeks, dude. I don't think he's coming back in 4 weeks. If he comes back in 4 weeks, dude, he's hurting that thumb again. And he's done for the year. So, I mean, the Cowboys, obviously, they could be trending towards the top 5 pick. I mean, if you look at Cooper Rush, going to come in there, their offense looked like dog shit with Dak back there. And now you're throwing Cooper Kupp in. I've heard they rumored to go get Jimmy G. I don't know if that'll work out. Pretty sure Jimmy G has to waive his no trade anyway to get sent to another team. But the Bucs, the defense looks there. And the Cowboys, I mean, what do you think about the Cowboys? It's kind of feel like I got robbed on them, giving them any credit when we covered the NFC, saying they would win any amount of ball games. Now, if I knew they would look that bad, it's problem in Jerry World, dude. Jerry Jones might be rolling over.
Yeah, so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had it going. I would say the big things that stood out to me for the Bucs offensively was that Julio looked good. And Leonard Fournette looked really good running the ball. I think that really stood out to me. We know what Tom Brady's going to do with those weapons. And if Leonard Fournette has a season if that's an indicator for his full season, they're going to have a phenomenal year because he looked fantastic. But the Dallas Cowboys look like a mess. We knew they got worse this year. They didn't do really anything in the offseason to be a better team. They clearly were a worse football team. And it feels like they were just relying on Dak, the stars on offense, so like Dak, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb just make plays, and then defensively they do have a good unit, but it feels like they're really heavy on okay, Micah Parsons, go make a play, which he is a stud, right? And he made multiple plays on third down that forced Tampa Bay into field goals. So Micah Parsons does do his thing, but you already said it. Dallas looked bad with Dak Prescott on the field. They looked atrocious offensively. We knew that they were going to struggle offensively. They lost weapons, and it was going to be a real test for Dak. You know, he got paid that huge contract. He's going to have to truly elevate his guys. And I was already skeptical because I don't think he could do it for a prolonged period of time, like a full season. But, man, they looked really, really bad. I don't think Jerry's interested in throwing a season away at his age. I know that sounds silly, but like I think he'll do whatever he can to try and salvage the season. I don't think I don't think the Niners will trade Jimmy G after what they saw from Trey Lance. I think they want the insurance. I don't think they're comfortable with just letting it all be Trey Lance's team right now. That's the reason Jimmy's still on the roster. I don't know what Dallas really does. I've heard some random backups that are kind of retired names get thrown out. The only one that kind of made sense to me was Gardner Minshew, our Eagles backup. Hopefully we don't help Dallas in any capacity. But I mean, they'll try and salvage the season. They're going to probably lose to Cincinnati this week, and then they get New York and Washington after that. Theoretically, if they could win those 2 division games, you're sitting at 2-2. But that's a tough task without Dak. I don't see it. I think Dallas's best bet is to like kind of suck this year, get a really good pick, and then a new head coach, maybe a Sean Payton, someone better than Mike McCarthy. I think that's their best bet for the long run. I don't think they'll do that at all. I think Jerry will do whatever it takes to get Dak and Michael Gallup back on the field as fast as possible. I guess the only hope I would give him is Drew Brees had that same kind of injury as an old guy, and he came back within 5 weeks, and Dak's younger. But man, it doesn't look good for Dallas, Dak healthy or not.
Yeah, one thing on the injury, I did see the Drew Brees comparison get thrown around, but Dak, he actually like broke the thumb. Drew Brees is like a ligament, right? So it's kind of the base of the thumb. So they're looking at, yeah, I mean, they could stretch it. The interesting thing for me is, I don't know, do you think CD's that guy? Like, I didn't see anything that night where I was like, I don't think CD's that guy, right? We went out, they were willing to get rid of Amari and let Amari go, but I just don't. No, and then it's fascinating to me that I probably would have just kept Amari and just let Michael Gallup roll, right? They traded Amari, let him go just to bring in Michael Gallup and pay him like Amari. I think they only saved $3.5 million. So yeah, the Cowboys, I mean, they'll try to do something. I've heard Cam Newton get swung around. I hope to God we don't give them Gardner Minshew, not because I think Gardner Minshew will revive their season or do anything crazy. I don't want to help the Cowboys, man. I want them to suck so bad. I saw Micah Parsons on Twitter talking trash to Leonard Fournette. Honestly, not a big fan of that guy either. He's good on the field, but I don't know. He's immature. And the Cowboys look bad. I love it, dude. Let them rot. Let Mike McCarthy suck it up. Let Jerry Jones sit up in the press box and cry. And it's gonna be a bad year, but I think it'd be smart to just let it ride. I don't know, but it's Jerry Jones, dude. He's gonna do something dumb, but we know it's coming. But yeah, I'm just concerned. I don't think CD is that guy that we all thought. And Zeke clearly doesn't have it. And I'm shocked Tony Pollard only 6 carries as well. I mean, only him touching the ball 8 times. I don't like that. But what do you think about CD though? You think he's that guy? I think he's a good number 2, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know if he's a number 1.
I think I'm there with you. I'm not out on him being a number 1 by any means. He hasn't had a fair opportunity to be a true number 1 yet. But it's just puzzling, right? Paying Michael Gallup, getting rid of Amari Cooper. There's an argument that Amari Cooper runs like the cleanest routes in the league. Like, he's a phenomenal route runner. And there was such good data and evidence showing that Dak Prescott was a much better quarterback with Amari Cooper on the field. So like, that move always puzzled me because they didn't get much in return. It was like a 5th round draft pick or something from the Browns. It wasn't a great return at all. So that was very puzzling to me. And no, I'm not totally sold on CD being a number 1. As of right now, it kind of reminds me of the Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown. Juju's a phenomenal receiver with Antonio Brown on the field. And then when he was a number 1, it did not work out the same at all. And CeeDee Lamb's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. We're in the 88 and being the number 1 guy, and Dallas not having a lot of weapons offensively. I think it's a lot of pressure. I don't think they can overcome it. Dallas is in for a long year, honestly.
Yeah, at least they're getting Jason Peters though. At least he's on the sidelines, right? He's
the
ready
bodyguard.
He's ready to roar. And then one quick note on Tampa. I mean, if the worst thing with Tampa was kind of some of their passing offense, you have Tom Brady back there, so it's just crazy, right? If that's like your biggest gripe, the run game was solid, the defense was flying around, the passing game. That O-line was a little suspicious, but I mean, they'll figure it out. You have the GOAT, you have Tom Brady back there. The Bucks, I mean, if that defense keeps going, you might not even need Tom Brady to be amazing, right? I loved watching that defense fly around. But you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster, you mentioned Antonio Brown. Let's go to the Steelers Bengals. Obviously, the line on that was 6.5. The Steelers in overtime find a way to get it done on the road. Mitch Trubisky, not great. Steelers offense, not great. but hey, it was good enough. He had 21 to 38 with a touchdown, a $194. The big thing was on the Bengals side. Joe Burrow, 4 picks. He got sacked 7 times, including a pick six to Minka Fitzpatrick. I think it was like the second play of the game, right? It was early on into the matchup, but Joe Burrow didn't look great. 53 passes. They get Joe Mixon the ball 27 times as well. Jamar Chase had a day, but it doesn't really matter when you lose at the end of the day, right? That's all that is remembered. So what do you make of Joe Burrow's kind of shaky start? You mentioned no preseason. Obviously, he had the appendectomy, but you obviously don't want to drop one at home to Mitch Trubisky and the Pittsburgh Steelers to start the year after coming off a Super Bowl run like they did last year.
I like how you just say Mitch Trubisky and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're laughing a little bit, and I don't blame you. Honestly, this game, even though it went Pittsburgh's way, doesn't really sway my opinion on these two teams. Pittsburgh's offense didn't look great. Najee got hurt. He was seen in a walking boot, I believe, after the game. So I don't know how that's going to play out. The offense still didn't look great. They don't have a great run game. The offensive line's not great. Their defense is phenomenal. TJ Watt, I think, partially tore his pec, I think is what happened. He's out 6 weeks, I believe. So that's pretty concerning for Pittsburgh. And it was a divisional game. You know, these are going to be close with Cincinnati. That's why that spread was kind of crazy. When I look at some of these spreads in hindsight, I don't know what I was thinking. But but for Cincinnati's sake, the Joe Burrow not playing preseason games, I do think that matters. It doesn't matter to the point of 4 interceptions. There's no excuse for that. But I'm still kind of encouraged with Cincinnati. Because they just keep playing, dude. That's that Joe Burrow team, man. He has a very short memory, keeps throwing the rock, and I like that a lot. And they still should have won that game. It's kind of like the Denver thing. I'm not like they were bad and they still probably should have won because of those fumbles. And it was like, this is why I'm kind of encouraged with Cincinnati, actually, because of all the turnovers. But at the end of the game, they were still right there. They drove down the field. They were very clutch. Jamar Chase touchdown. Then they missed the damn extra point. So it's like, yeah, a lot of what ifs, and they still lost at the end of the day. I'm still kind of encouraged with Cincinnati. The part that does really worry me for Cincinnati is that offensive line didn't look any better, right?
Nope.
That was the thing they were supposed to improve. Joe Burrow still got rushed, hit, sacked, beat up. So like, honestly, I'm still high on Cincinnati. There is a lot of encouraging things in that terrible performance, but the thing that does really worry me for Cincinnati is the offensive line didn't look any better, and that was the whole point of that big offseason, was all about getting that offensive line right, so Joe's not getting hit as much. But if they're going to play like that all season, they might as well just brought back the same guys.
Yeah, 7 sacks, 4 picks, not a clean game. I expect Joe Burrow to figure it out though. But yeah, I don't know if that is the big thing of the offseason. That's all I heard about the Bengals was we made a Super Bowl run last year. We had probably the worst O-line. We went out and spent this. We get La'el Collins. We get Alex Kapp. We did that. We did this. We did that. And then you have 7 sacks week 1. Concerning stuff for sure. But I mean, this is typical Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, I laughed when I said Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, I mean, this is what it's going to have to be. I don't think it's going to look pretty at all anytime this year in Pittsburgh. I think Najee's good. Somebody said that I saw on Twitter where he should be good to go week 2, nothing serious. But yeah, they're going to look like dog shit. They're going to fight. They're going to scrap. It's a Mike Tomlin team, right? They're going to battle and find ways to eke out games if they can. And if not, they'll end up losing. That's what it's going to be. I don't think the Steelers at any point this year are going to look flashy, look amazing, be a fun team to tune in and watch. And obviously, yeah, we saw it week 1.
I got a question before we move off the Steelers for you. If Mitchell Trubisky is going to be just like a mediocre quarterback, my real concern with Mitch was the 55% completion, below 60% completion. If he's going to really just be okay and the offense will be okay at best at times, do you think they should just roll with Kenny Pickett, the rookie? Because like he might be the future. Why not get him those reps and try anyway? I kind of lean towards that idea if Mitch is going to be just kind of average, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree. It's kind of, I mean, I saw that they want to roll with Trubisky all year, but yeah, I wouldn't disagree with just getting Pickett in there, getting him reps. I mean, he looked pretty good in the preseason. Obviously, you got to take that with a grain of salt because it is preseason, but I don't see any reason not to, right? Because you're assuming that like, hey, he's going to sit out this entire year and then he's probably going to win the job next year. It's like, why not just toss him out there and just let him play? Because Mitch Trubisky did nothing on Sunday. Obviously, he made no mistakes, but he didn't do anything to wow you. He didn't, as you mentioned, the Bengals still probably should have won the game. We got guys shanking short field goals, bad snaps. It was just like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, I don't disagree with that take of they may as well if Mitch isn't going to do anything crazy, but it's Mike Tomlin. He's probably going to continue to roll with Mitch Trubisky and just see where it takes him, right? The TJ Watt injury, that is concerning because that takes a big piece off your defense who attacks the passer. And yeah, that's a hard void to fill with a guy like that goes out. Defensive player of the year candidate goes out. So we'll see, man.
And the weird thing with Pittsburgh is they're going to squeak their way to at least 8 wins somehow.
They're damn good at doing that, right? They very are. Next one, just short. I mean, I don't really have much to say about it. What do you make of the Browns going on the road to spoil Baker's revenge? Baker 16 of 27, 235, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. What was it, a 58-yard field goal? I think Cade York hit to beat the to send Baker Mayfield home upset. I don't have anything really to talk about besides Nick Chubb went off 22 for $141. But how do you feel about that? Baker's probably punching air when he saw that field goal go through.
Yeah, this is a game of a quarterback I don't really like much, Baker, and a team I don't really care for, the Browns. Yeah, I lean towards the Browns because they just have such a better roster. Baker was like an average guy, good day, I guess, average day. It's just what I expect from Baker. I don't know. Browns, Panthers, individual field goal. I don't take much from that game. The Browns are clearly a better team. Obviously, they don't have their quarterback, so I don't know. There's not much to take from it. Kind of what I expected. I don't expect much out of Baker and the Panthers.
Yeah, I do find it funny. Robbie Anderson said no, and then he gets 8 targets, 5 catches, $102, and does catch the 1 touchdown. He didn't want Baker, but he got a touchdown out of him. And then I will give you credit that I think you said, I don't know if it was on when we covered the AFC North, but at some point you said, I just think the Browns can run Nick Chubb and win a game. And they clearly ran Nick Chubb enough to win a game because Jacoby Brissett wasn't anything special, 147 yards, a touchdown, no picks. They just, as you said, better roster. Baker Mayfield sucks. And that's what it was. Donovan Peoples-Jones, though, 11 targets, 6 catches, 60 yards. That's clearly the number one man in town for Cleveland. But as I said, I don't put much credence into it because it's Jacoby Brissett and they don't have the biggest loser on earth, number 4, on the field with them. Some other quick ones. I mean, what do you make of the Colts? Matt Ryan era. They went out, got rid of Carson Wentz, sacked Carson Wentz, and they bring in Matt Ryan, and they were down 20-6 at one point to the Texans, and they clawed back to a tie. What do you make about the Colts? How do you feel about the Colts? As it's kind of a make or break year for Frank Reich, as we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that whole AFC South might just be really bad, right? They managed to not win a game at all this weekend, and 2 of them played each other. That's kind of impressive, honestly. I don't know. You plug in old Matt Ryan, it was not exciting. You tie with Houston in Houston. Houston's not a great football team. Carson Wentz throws 4 touchdowns in a win for Washington. It's not, I mean, I don't really want to praise Wentz, but like, is Matt Ryan really giving you much more? I don't know. Jim Irsay, I guess, was very, very much against Carson. So I guess he's happy with the tie right now. I don't know. Indianapolis seems like a team that's going to get really hot at some point and look really good, and they'll inevitably let us down at the end.
For sure. I found it the most fascinating thing about that was the fact that they got Matt Ryan to throw the ball 50 times, and then Jonathan Taylor still had 31 carries. I was like, if you would have told me that Matt Ryan throws the ball 50 times, I would say that Jonathan Taylor has like 15 carries, which would have been asinine. But I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, the Colts, I don't think they got much better. And then you already alluded to Carson Wentz. Shout out for the Commanders -2.5. I appreciate that. But I mean, that's what I expect out of Carson Wentz week 1. He's a good week 1 guy. And finds a way to get it done. How about the 49ers slop fest game? It's really hard to judge Trey Lance. He did throw one really obvious bad pick where he stared down the receiver. That was kind of bad, but it's hard. I mean, but it's another one where the 49ers, they have enough talent on the roster, kind of similar to the Broncos, where you still got to find a way to win. You can't lose a game to the Bears, no matter what the conditions are. It was obviously a monsoon. I saw a video of the guy with the popcorn like a million times, the water going into his bucket of popcorn. So that was hilarious. But any takeaways from the monsoon game, or even the Titans Giants, where Saquon Barkley, dude, 18 carries, $164, found a way to win. The Brian Dable era starts with a win. So what do you think about those 2 matchups?
Yeah, so for the Niners Bears, I don't think we can put much stock into that game. The Trey Lance thing, he's clearly having growing pains, right? I mean, obviously he hasn't played a lot of football in the last few years. To be fair to him, I think the issue with the Niners is such a fine line because they have a win now roster. You got Jimmy G, who took you to a conference championship and a Super Bowl appearance, still on the roster, and they clearly are keeping him for insurance reasons. Because I mean, it's a fine line between having your young quarterback have growing pains and growth, but also being like you got to act now because it's a win now roster, and you don't know how long those truly last. So the Niners are in a weird spot. I would not want to be Kyle Shanahan judging that. And to the Giants and Titans, honestly, I think the Giants had a good win. Saquon, I'm not terribly surprised that he was good because he's a year removed from that bad injury. I think that makes a world of difference for him. He's a freak athlete, so I'm really not surprised that he was very good again. Tennessee didn't play a bad game, honestly. They could have played better, but like Ryan Tannehill was good, not great. The thing that I noticed a lot, I think the big Brian Dable factor, one, he had the balls to go for two and just take the win. That was baller. I always appreciate that. I mean, I'm not happy it was the Giants that did it, but that's always cool to see. I'm always a fan of that. But the thing that got me was 17 for 21 for Daniel Jones. I'm sure Brian Dable, they were easy passes, right? But like it gives his quarterback confidence, and that's the difference that the New York Giants haven't had. They've had inept coaching. Brian Dable's a real head coach. That was a damn good coaching job. I still don't think Daniel Jones is a great quarterback. I don't think you can win anything big with him as your quarterback, but I think I was impressed that Brian Dable had him go 17 for 21 and ended up with a win.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Dable's going to have to do. He's going to have to game manage Daniel Jones to the max and use Saquon Barkley as much as he can to kind of mask up. He knows what he has at the quarterback position. So I'm with you. I was impressed that he's able to keep him that efficient and not overload him, not force him to do too much. We'll see how it goes in the coming weeks. And then for the 49ers, yeah, it's fascinating. The Jimmy G insurance thing, when you give him the $6.5 million guarantee to kind of sit there, when you hear that Trey Lance was kind of annoyed that Jimmy G came back, they're kind of on edge. As you mentioned, win now team went to the NFC title game last year with the guy that is sitting in the number 2 spot at quarterback. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Trey Lance to kind of to get it going as soon as next week. I'll be watching the 49ers with a hawkeye next week for sure to see how Trey Lance looks, because I don't know. It feels razor thin that you don't want to pull. You obviously don't want to pull him because that just kills the confidence. But it's like, how many, if he goes this week and doesn't show you anything, if he loses another game, 3 games in a row, right? So it's kind of, you got to keep an eye on it, because Jimmy G is just sitting there waiting to get his number called, and Kyle Shanahan, put him back in there. But you can't really take much out of the monsoon game though, right? It's kind of hard to judge a guy that played in a hurricane. But it is what it is. 0-1 start to the Trey Lance error. Any kind of closing thoughts on any of these other games? I'll move over real quick to our spread picks, if it'll let me. There we go. This is how we did week 1 on the spreads. I finished 8-7. You started out 5-10. So not ideal weeks. I would have loved to have a couple more. I kind of suckered myself into that Rams one. I'm kind of pissed at that, and the Broncos as well. I mean, Jesus Lord, Broncos. But any other kind of closing thoughts on any of these games that kind of we didn't talk about already?
Saints Falcons, really bad start for that New Orleans offense. They got it going. They were down 16. Falcons always find a way to lose games in spectacular fashion. So what's new? So I'm interested to see if the Saints can put together like a full game of good football, not just like partially. So the Saints are kind of just such a question mark to me as a team, because like they have a pretty good floor and a decently high ceiling if they play well. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that turns out. And then man, the Bills might be the best team in football right now. I don't know. There was a lot of question marks. It's hard to put stock into that opening game. There's a lot of things going on. Rams are high in emotion, seeing that banner go down. Stafford and Allen Robinson, that was pretty concerning. But I don't know, maybe Buffalo is the best team in football. They were pretty impressive to open the year. And then spread-wise, not a great start. I didn't bet week 1 at all because I always expect weird outcomes week 1. Looking at the spreads, the ones I really regret is like that Cardinals +6, and we talked about that. Broncos -6.5. Those are the 2 that really bother me. Steelers and the Bears one. Those are the 2 that when I look back on it and like break it down, rookie quarterback starting on the road, that's not great. And then Steelers divisional game. So those 2 kind of those are the 2 that I was alluding to earlier that seem obvious in hindsight. The 2 that were stupid were Cardinals and Broncos though.
I don't even think the Broncos are stupid. Russell Wilson and Hackett suck. I think that's my problem with that. I'm still not calling that a stupid one. The Cardinals one was stupid. Yeah, that was the scam. We called it the scam. We should have picked the Chiefs. And then I'm pissed at the Rams one only because I literally said like a week ago that the Bills would win. The Bills would win. And then literally prior to making that pick, I suckered myself into the Rams because a banner's going up. But Buddy has a bad elbow and Jalen Ramsey can't cover me right now. So that's what it looks like. And I guess I'll do a quick shout out to the Eagles, right? We find a way to get it done. It wasn't, I mean, I don't like letting the Lions run all over us and get back into the game. But the I was about to say Jalen Brown, Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown connection was there. I obviously want to see Devonta Smith get some more, and I was shocked. I was actually pleasantly surprised that they used Miles Sanders quite a bit. He had a great day, found his way into the end zone. So overall, the homer minute, I was happy with the Eagles' performance coming out of week one, and we got a big one Monday night next week that we'll get into when we cover week 2 against the Vikings.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Exciting start for the Eagles. Definitely things to build on and work on. And man, I just love Jalen Hurts' leadership. The way he talks to the guys, like in the locker room, talking about that game, about how much more work they have to do. But then at the end, like, hey, celebrate this win. I don't know how high Jalen Hurts' ceiling is still. I think if everything around him is good, the team can be great. But like, I just love him as like a person and his leadership skills.
For sure. We talked about it when we talked about it all off season, especially when we covered the NFC East. I love Jalen Hurts as a leader and a person. He's a good guy. And honestly, he's a guy I can get behind, right? He's an easy guy to root for, I would say. And so, yeah, I'm excited going into week 2. But I mean, that's going to wrap it up for the week 1 recap. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment. If you have any feedback, add us on Twitter. We'd love to, we'll banter with you on there. Mention something in the comments. We'll go at you there. We just love to see feedback, any kind of ways that we can tweak and improve the show. As always, this will drop on Spotify and YouTube at the same exact time. And we will be back tomorrow. Actually, it'll drop tomorrow evening, week 2 preview, where we will talk all week 2 action, the big games on week 2. So we'll see you on that one.